Welcome back guys to Voicey here and another r/EntitledParents. Imagine working 6 night shifts in a row. You just want to relax on your porch for a few hours before getting some sleep. That's when you discover that your new next door neighbor is an entitled parent. How will our hero get out of this one? Don't forget Voicey veterans to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story was called EM Things Reserved for Customer with Kids, Parking Spots Aren't for Me and My Child. This happened this past week while grocery shopping with my 18-month-old child. Not as bad as some others in this sub, but I thought it belonged here. The town I live in has a big community fest each year on Main Street. It's a typical New England type of Main Street in that it's actually 2 different one-way streets with a big field in the middle. The small number of available parking spots around the area are usually taken by the vendor, so the town offers shuttle services from the local grocery store. This, in turn, makes parking tough at the grocery store, so I made sure to get there early. The store has parking for customers with children spots in a couple rows. It's pretty convenient because it's 4 spots on one side with a cart pickup return in the middle. Instead of trying to carry my child, the diaper bag, and the reusable shopping bags into the store to grab a cart, they're right there. All this is important. Players are me, EM, and store manager. I was lucky enough to grab one of the kids spots Saturday morning, which was great because there weren't many spots available, if any. I was in the process of loading my kid into the cart when it started. "Excuse me." I go about my business because I have no idea she's talking to me. "Excuse me." I look up and realize she's talking to me. "What's up?" "You parked in the wrong spot." She gestures to the sign. "These are for customers with children." At this point I gear myself up for an argument about how they're not for dads with children, which is a disagreement a friend of mine said he got into once. "It says children, but you have 1 child. Children means 2 or more." I smile. "I think we both know it just means customers who have their kid with them." "It means customers with 2 children or more. You have to park somewhere else." I start pushing my cart and child towards the store. I'm not moving. EM starts shrieking, and I mean shrieking to the point where it made my child jump. "That spot is not for you and your 1 kid. It's for people like me with 2 kids." At this point I decided to stop engaging and just get into the store. I'm not trying to get into a parking lot dispute with my 18-month-old child with me. Heck no. I was almost there when she started blasting the horn. Not just beeping it, but laying on it so it was just a constant horn sound. "Get your freaking car out of that spot or I'll have the manager tow it." I got into the store just as the manager was heading out. He heard the yelling and beeping and asked what was happening. I told him the truth. Some crazy lady was ticked off because I parked in the spot for customers with kids. He looked at me, looked at my child, and then back outside, where EM had just parked across 2 handicapped parking spots. Out of her SUV climbed 2 children who looked to be about 10 to 12 years old. SM sees this and runs outside. "Ma'am, you can't park in the handicapped spot without a handicapped sticker. You'll get a ticket." "I don't give a crap. There's no other spots since some jerk is taking up the kid parking spots with only 1 kid." At this point, the doors closed and I couldn't hear anything else. Thankfully I didn't run into her while shopping, which was probably a small miracle. 45 minutes later, I was heading out the door and see a cop parked next to the lady's SUV, and he's writing her a ticket. The state I'm in, it's a $150 fine for the first violation and $250 for any after that. I'm not sure if taking 2 spots equals 2 fines, but she's probably lucky her car wasn't towed. Hopefully the cop wrote 2 tickets, 1 for $150 and 1 for $250. Alright, how stupid does this lady have to get? The sign says, "These are for customers with children." So she takes the plural part of children and goes, "Oh, you have to have multiple children." Well, guess what? It also says customers, plural as well, but you're just 1 customer. So by the same logic, you have to have 2 people in the car that are going to be customers for you to park there. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, of course everybody knows what it means, but you've taken it so literally, or only half of it so literally, so that you can make a claim to the parking spot when somebody else got there before you. This story was called "I signed a 1-year lease and just found out I live across from an entitled mother." There's 2 things I'd like to state for proper context before getting into this. I moved into a better apartment at the start of the month and finally have access to a nice porch I can enjoy. Number 2, I work overnights and have been on for the last 6 nights. So I got home this morning around 7:30 and decide I want to enjoy some porch time before it gets too hot outside. I put some ice, vodka, and seltzer water in my little cooler to bring out to the front porch. I set up my laptop, mix a drink, and plug in my headphones to relax after work. I'm having a drink, smoking a cheap cigar, and playing Fallout 76 on the front porch while trying to enjoy my day off. A little after 8, a mum and her kids across the street come out to their front yard. The kids are playing and mum is watching them from her own porch. I give the mum a polite neighborly nod and she shoots me a dirty look. I brush it off since I'm used to such things from work and go about my relaxing morning. That's when it seems really messed up. I finished my second drink and mixed a third right at the porch table. It was at that moment I seemingly enraged the mum across the street. She marched right over and began yelling at me. "What are you, some kind of alcoholic? It's bad enough you're smoking in front of my kids, but this is absolutely disgusting. My kids don't need to see you getting drunk in front of them. This is a good neighborhood with good hard-working people living in it. We don't need alcoholic trash like you living here." So I put on my best customer service face and try to explain myself. I tell her I work nights, so the morning is my evening. I tell her I don't plan on getting drunk, I'm just relaxing after work. I tell her I'm on my own porch and I'm not bothering anyone. I tell her I'm sorry, but her kids aren't my responsibility. I promise her I won't be getting loud or rowdy and plan on going to bed in a couple hours. None of that matters, and she launches into a rerun of her earlier diatribe, just longer with more insults. Meanwhile, her kids have stopped playing to stare at mummy, losing her mind. I try to placate her again, and now she gets louder. At this point, I'm just done. Between working the last 6 nights, feeling really tired, I let loose. So I repeat my earlier points, peppered with several swear words, finishing off with, "Get lost and get off my porch," because I'm just so burned at this point. She seems to realize I won't kowtow to her crap and goes back across the street to her own porch while the kids go back to playing. She continues throwing me dirty looks and typing away at her phone. I'm sure I'll be the subject of all her mum group rants today, and I'm just fine with that. The relaxing after work ritual is a very important and sacred one. When you're spending most of your waking hours just working away hard at some job, often at places that you don't want to be, you've got a few special hours to just relax and have to yourself, enjoying whatever it is you do. Yes, maybe it's a little odd that this dude at 8 AM in the morning is smoking a cigar and drinking, but you don't know his life. For that dude, it's his evening and it's his time to just relax before he goes to bed. It's fine to have different values and standards and set those expectations for your kids, but if you don't know him and you don't know his life, just leave him alone. This story was called Yet Another Time a Stranger Thinks I'll Babysit Their Kids. As per the title, I have a long history of random strangers assuming I'll babysit their kids. I used to be a care provider, so I thought perhaps they assumed that as I already had half a dozen kids on my hands, I'd enjoy a few more. But I'm not one anymore, and this still happens, so I just don't know what about me says, "You should assume I want responsibility for your kids I've never met before." Oh. I do some contract work. I knew I needed to take a phone call at a certain time. It's a nice day out and it's summer vacation, so I think I'll take my kids down to the local basketball park or playground. They'll be busy, I'll get to make the call in peace. Win-win. We'll even bring the more docile of our dogs. But this EP had other plans. We're at the park. My kids are off doing their thing. I'm starting my call when, "Hi doggy, hi doggy doggy." 3 kids, I'd say ages 3 to 6, are suddenly all up in Dog's face. Dog is pretty chill, but clearly not enjoying this. In an effort to not interrupt my call, I walk away with Dog, ignoring the kids, who of course follow us. "Stop, we're playing with the dog!" They shriek as they attempt to grab at her. She's trying to hide behind me. I excuse myself from the call and briefly tell the kids, "No thanks, my dog's not interested," and I direct them back to the person I assume is their father, who's on his phone on the other side of the park. They run off. I explain the situation. Person I'm talking to and I have a brief eye roll together and carry on. Or we try to, until the kids are suddenly back, attempting to force a stuffed animal into my dog's mouth. I am all over this. I tell the kids sternly that they need to be careful with dogs they don't know. I've already said my dog isn't interested, etc. "But why?" Nope, I'm not engaging in a why session with these kids. Again, I send them back to Dad. Moments pass. "My dad says to ask you why you're on the phone." What the actual? I ignore them and walk away. They follow and repeat themselves. rinse and repeat a few more times. I head in the direction of their father, who is yucking it up and also tries walking away when he notices us coming. I am now in what feels like a ridiculous relay with this man, his kids, and cell phones. I finally give up and go sit in my car, where I can see my own kids, whilst my 3 new charges stand outside and stare at me, occasionally still yelling to ask what I'm doing. When I'm done, I come out. They're still there.
What were you doing?
A phone call for work.
Why?
A better question would be, what's your dad doing?
Talking, so we need to stay with you.
Again, not the first time I've heard this sentiment. I march the kids over to their father, whose back is to me, and I'm able to sneak up on him this time. Hey there, are these your kids? He turns, glares, and gestures for me to shush. I ask because I'm trying to do a work call and they kept interrupting me. This carries on until he groans and tells whoever he's talking to that he'll have to call them back. He tries to tell me he didn't think I'd mind. It's not a big deal. His call was too important. I was here with other kids anyhow, etc. Summed up, we had a long, not very cordial talk about dog safety, stranger danger, etc. That included much eye-rolling, scoffing, and whining on his part, with much justification that he had been on a very important call that was worth presuming on random strangers. The highlight was when another mum came up and added that he'd tried the same thing with her 20 minutes before I got there. At that point, he threw his hands up in the air and told his kids they had to go home because there weren't any nice ladies to help them at the playground that day. The other mum and I laughed. You'd have to be a pretty careless parent to just be like, yeah, other parents in the park, they can mind my kids, I got stuff to do. Do you know what's gonna keep you a lot busier and be a lot more stressful? If they went missing. So maybe next time pay more attention to your kids? This story was called You Have Crutches, You Don't Need a Wheelchair. In this story, entitled parent, entitled child, employee, manager, and me. So this happened a couple of years ago around December. I had fractured my tibia plateau and needed to get crutches and a wheelchair. I had to get a cast before I could walk around with my crutches though. I was at the nearby Walgreens that was about a block from my house, so wheeling my chair there wasn't a struggle. I get inside the Walgreens and wheel myself towards the toilet paper. I remembered at that moment that my doctor had wanted me practicing walking around with the crutches so I could get used to them. So I did. I get out of the wheelchair and slowly walk towards the milk, leaving my wheelchair in the toilet paper aisle, which was 1 aisle away from the milk. An employee notices me struggling to try to open the door, and they help me open the door and get the milk for me. I make my way back to the aisle where my wheelchair is, and this is where the trouble begins. EP is pushing her child around on the wheelchair, while her child is happily screaming, "Wee, faster!" I walk back to my wheelchair where the EP stopped to take a break and confront her. Excuse me, ma'am?
Yes?
What are you doing with my wheelchair?
Well, I saw it was empty, so I figured I might as well grab it.
Well, this is my wheelchair, and you shouldn't do that with someone else's property. May I have it back?
You're obviously able to walk without the wheelchair. You don't need it.
I was struggling to stand at this point and was sweating profusely. I was not in good shape when I fractured my leg, so standing up for a while made me tired fast. Ma'am, please, I really can't stand up like this for long.
Not my fault. You shouldn't leave a wheelchair unoccupied, so it's mine now.
Mommy, I thought you said we could have it.
The kid, who looks like he's around 8, started crying and stomping his foot on the floor, saying repeatedly, I want it now! The employee who helped me get the milk notices and comes over to us. What's going on here?
This man tried stealing my son's wheelchair.
What?
Ma'am, this is his wheelchair, not yours.
No, it's not. It's mine now.
Employee signals for the manager to come over. The kid is still crying out loud in the wheelchair, while his mum is trying to comfort him. I was feeling really tired at this point and feeling lightheaded. The manager comes over. I knew the manager personally. He and my mum used to work at an apothecary downtown with each other, so we always knew each other.
Ma'am, if you do not give him back the wheelchair, we're gonna have to kick you out.
A bunch of other people are staring at her at this point, and the mum looks nervous. The entitled parent gets her son out of the wheelchair, pushes it over, and runs out of the store, holding her son's hand, who is still crying. The employee and the manager help set the wheelchair back up and help me get back into it. They felt bad that I had to deal with that, so they offered to help pack the groceries and gave me some coupons. The manager, whom I will call Dave, walked with me back to the house and helped get the groceries into the house. Before he left, he told me, "Make sure your mum knows what happened today, Op." "Okay, I will, Dave, thank you." He smiles at me and walks back to the Walgreens. When my mum got home from work that evening, I told her what happened. She was furious. The EP and EC are banned from that Walgreens for life. I suppose usually when you see a wheelchair, it's because somebody's in it who can't walk. And if they can walk, therefore why do they need the wheelchair? That works perfectly fine except for one simple problem. Some people can walk, but they still need a wheelchair. It's not like you can just see an open wheelchair and you go, well, I guess miraculously the person who's in it can now walk, so it's a free wheelchair to just play as a play toy, right? EP logic, everyone. EP logic. Post your stories, memes, and fan art at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.